So, have you ever noticed when you get ready to have a barbecue, and you go to the grocery store and you buy a little bottle of barbecue sauce, and you bring it home, you pour it in a little pot, and you heat it up for people to put on their barbecue. 2 people go through the line, and it's gone. $3, $4 down the drain. The barbecue sauce probably wasn't that good anyway. Well, today, because I'm barbecuing, I'm going to teach you how to make your own barbecue sauce. This is my famous barbecue sauce recipe. It's super secret. If you tell anybody the recipe, I will kill you. But it starts off with a pint of my delicious home-brewed beer. This is an IPA. Now, obviously, unless you happen to be extremely lucky and fortunate and have a pint of Ben Starr's home-brewed IPA in your cabinet, you're going to have to use something else. So really, any kind of beer will work. I would stay away from like the lagers, though, the pale commercial beers like Bud Light and Coors Light and things like that, because they really don't have any flavor. An IPA's got a lot of good flavor, and the bitterness in it contrasts nicely with the rest of the barbecue sauce. So we're going to add a pint of IPA, and it's going to bubble and foam. Don't do this in a small pot. And then a cup of stale, heavy, bitter, old coffee. You're going to add those together, boil them and reduce them until they're really syrupy, so you've really concentrated those flavors. So in my food processor here, I've got 2 onions, coarsely chopped, and to that we're going to add an entire head of garlic. And you heard me right, an entire head. This is absolutely important. The barbecue sauce is not going to be stellar unless you use an entire head of garlic. So you're going to process this until it's almost completely liquefied. So, when your beer and coffee have reduced down almost to the consistency of like pancake syrup, it's time to proceed. And actually, while you weren't looking, I grabbed a little bit of red wine and tossed it in there to let it reduce too. Ultimately, we're going to end up with 3 different alcohols in this barbecue sauce, but it makes it taste delicious. Okay, so now we're going to add 3 giant cans of tomato sauce and 1 giant can of tomato paste. This is going to end up making like 2 to 3 quarts of sauce, but an entire barbecue party will go through all of this in one sitting, and if not, just pour it into a bottle and pour some in a quart jar and freeze it for your next barbecue party. Now once we've got our tomato sauce incorporated, we're going to add that puree, that onion and garlic puree, and get that stirred in. Next comes my proprietary spice blend, a cup of it. And if I gave you the exact recipe for my proprietary spice blend, I'd have to kill you. And I'm not really in the mood to kill any of you today because I've got a lot to do before the party tonight. But I'll just tell you, if you go on my website, benstarr.com, you'll probably find the recipe for my proprietary barbecue spice blend if you snoop around a little bit. So that goes in there. Next, all of our flavor components. We've got soy sauce. Just enough to add a little bit of salty complexity to it. We've got liquid smoke. Now, liquid smoke is actually what it's called, liquid smoke. It's smoke that's been condensed. And this stuff is really powerful, so you're only going to add about a tablespoon of it. You can add a little bit more later on if you want to. And actually, if you have enough room on your smoker, you can forego the liquid smoke. Once you get your barbecue sauce done, you just take it and set it in the smoker for 6 hours, and then it'll be smoked naturally itself. That's a great technique. I just don't have room on my smoker. Now we've got some Worcestershire sauce. Some red wine vinegar. Sriracha, which is my heat element. You can add more or less depending on how much heat you want it, based on the palates of who you're cooking for. Molasses, which adds sweetness and incredible dense dark flavor. So good. Molasses is one of my favorite ingredients. Horseradish, which adds a nice bite. Yellow mustard, which also adds a little bit of bite and brightness to it. Apple cider vinegar, which is an ingredient I just absolutely can't live without. Now, all of these ingredients have flavor components in them that are only alcohol soluble. That means they're only going to extract and bloom if we add alcohol. Now we had alcohol in the beginning, but all the alcohol burnt off when we boiled our beer. So before this comes back to a boil, we're going to add some bourbon, about 1/3 of a cup or so. And that is going to extract more flavor from our spices and our other ingredients that we wouldn't get if we didn't add the bourbon. And it's going to add its own nice sweetness to the sauce as well. So we're going to get all of that brought together, stirred together well. We're going to cook it on low heat for about 6 hours to let the flavors really meld and come together. Towards the end, we can taste to make sure it's salty enough and that our seasonings are balanced between spicy and heat and savory and sour is nice and perfectly balanced. And then we are going to have this gigantic tub of barbecue sauce ready for the barbecue party. And actually half of this is going to go into the barbecue beans. So while it looks like I've made a gallon, I have, almost half that's going to disappear to another dish in the meal as well. But we'll have a good 2 quarts left over for putting on top of our ribs and smoked chicken.